So, as always, we begin by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So, if you can please do us the honors by introducing yourself to our listeners and viewers and tell us about your amazing work.
Oh, thank you. So my name is Adil Hassam. I'm the VP and head of community banking here at BDC. BDC is the Business Development Bank of Canada. So community banking is a new line of business for the Development Bank of Canada. We announced publicly the launch of this line of business on November 22nd last year, but we've done like some work prior to that to be able to launch in the market. And really, why did we set up a new line of business for the BDC? It's really because we have an ambition to reach much more entrepreneurs in a different way. And really, what community banking is all about is to work through lending partners to reach these entrepreneurs that are namely underserved and underrepresented in the entrepreneurship ecosystem in Canada. So it's a B2B2C model. And I'll explain just a little bit more what do I mean by that is we would be partnering with a bank, a credit union, or with a community-based lending organization such as Futurepreneur, Face, Evolve, to reach entrepreneurs that are having a harder time accessing financing. But financing is only one part of the story. There is also the support that goes along to help the entrepreneur, invest the financing in an appropriate way, to build business plans, etc. And these two things together have proven to be a success story for entrepreneurs to be successful in their venture. So community banking in a nutshell is a partnership model between BDC bringing the best of itself, being financing, capital, and support, to a partner, and the partner will have the relationship with the entrepreneur, the proximity, the advice, the trust, and for example, BDC will not be able to reach very remote rural entrepreneur, indigenous and whatnot across Canada. So by partnering with partners, we can reach more entrepreneurs together.
Wow, that's really, really good. And it's very important too how you connect those all together. We thank you for your service for sure. So tell me, like, what inspires you about the work that you do?
So I'll tell you a little bit about a personal story, and I will tell you why I joined BDC in this role. So if you go back 30 years ago, my mother had the ambition to go to Cuba. And to go to Cuba, she had to buy a bathing suit. But back in the days, you didn't have a specialty retail store to buy a bathing suit where you can have advice on does it fit you, does it not fit you. You're basically buying a bathing suit in the Bay Eaton Center next to pots and pans with zero support to give you advice on your bathing suit. You only had Aldo that had the great idea to sell only shoes in a retail store. And seeing that, my mom, who's an immigrant from Madagascar here in Canada, she thought about launching a business for bathing suit. And she had the great idea to call it Bikini Village. So with my dad, they knocked at the door of banks and credit unions to get access to financing. And everybody said no, even though the idea was pretty good, if you ask me. And so what ended up happening is we had to forego some equity in the company because we received financing from a white Quebecer family to launch Bikini Village. So this stayed with me all through these years. And when I had the opportunity to join BDC to make a difference, providing access to financing to these newcomers, Black, Indigenous, women, rural, language minority, LGBTQ plus entrepreneurs, it really came back to my youth. And so that really drives me about my current work is the ability to make a difference in Canada to support the entrepreneurship ecosystem for those who are as deserving as other groups to get access to financing and support.
where you are a very beneficial ally for, the entrepreneur. Like you use your parents as a prime example, and that's exactly what we need. Somebody who's in our corner, who's, we're just the mom and pops and, young people coming up and they either like, yo, I don't want to be in a job, I want to do for myself. I want to have my own business, but where's the support? Where's the help? So this is so needed. Awesome. So now on the flip side, what are some of the challenges or barriers you face in your work and how have you overcome them or in the process of overcoming them?
That is a very good question, and I'll break that question into sub-blocks. Some challenges, well, there are some internally here that I'm facing in the sense that launching a new line of business is not easy for a financial organization that's been in operation for 80 years. You have standard processes, you have technology, you have like operating like business lines and whatnot. And to be, sorry to say, the new kid on the block in the organization to set all this up takes a lot of effort, a lot of convincing, a lot of work to build everything from scratch. So I feel myself like an entrepreneur within BDC to set this up. So there is some mentality to change and some processes to build, some product sets to build, etc., etc. And when you think about it, the work we do is really the, as my CEO Isabelle Hudon would say, is the D in BDC. So it's really the development bank aspect of BDC. And why I'm quoting this is, well, naturally, the type of clientele we are trying to help are by nature perceived as more risky, perceived as, needing additional help to succeed and whatnot. And therefore, say the profitability of this line of business will not be as high or as prevalent as other ones because we have a development bank aspect to it. And for those of you who have studied development bank, we call it looking at it on a more long-term profitability with economic KPIs, with a triple bottom line approach, economic, social, governance, ESG approach. So we have to look at things differently at BDC to be able to support community banking within BDC. So my internal challenge is really get a different perspective for my colleagues to support this. So that's the internal challenge. Once this is done, and I have my box of loan guarantees or financing for partners that I have to convince banks, credit unions to embark into this journey with us to provide financing for equity deserving groups, underserved entrepreneurs. Second challenge. Then third challenge is get them to promote this product because banks and credit unions, contrary to Futurepreneur and Face, who are only providing this service, banks and credit unions, they have hundreds of products to sell in their toolbox. They have to sell credit cards, they have to sell bank accounts. So this loan guarantee program we have with them, it's one out of many. So then there's another level of convincing to, hey, let's promote together this product for the benefit of entrepreneurs. So you see there's internal challenges, then there is the negotiation with the partner, and once it's set up, the partner has to promote it to entrepreneurs. So it's multi-layer challenges.
Yeah, I totally understand that. Absolutely. So, now, like currently, do you have anything that you're looking to like amplify in your work? Anything you would like to share with us that's coming up new?
100%. So last week, I was part of a panel in Toronto, part of the Canadian Lending Summit. And really, I talked about and brought some of my partner to explain to the room field of bankers, credit unions, lenders, fintech about community banking. Because it was launched November 22nd, but I realized speaking and networking after the event, nobody has heard about us that much. We are not as known as BDC Financing, BDC Capital, BDC Advisory, our other line of business, who are known for years. Well, BDC Community Banking is merits to be more known. So that's first thing. The second thing is, our key priorities, and we announced it when we launched community banking. We have big ambition. There's 1.2, 1.3 million entrepreneurs in Canada. But BDC could serve, say, three, 400,000 of them. Well, we have as an ambition community banking to help touch at least 100,000 entrepreneurs more over 10 years. When you look at how many BDC has today, we are serving 107,000 entrepreneurs today. So think about it. Over 10 years, our ambition is to add another 100,000. It's a big ambition for community banking. And we can only do that if we do have partnership who believe in this similar program, be it banks, credit unions, or community-based organization, be them for Black, Indigenous, women, or other groups who wants to join forces with community banking at BDC to reach those entrepreneurs.
Awesome. That is absolutely amazing and very, very beneficial. Um, so let me ask you, like, as far as in your line, in your field, how do you feel of the future of it? Like we normally say social impact, and you're definitely doing that. So how do you see social impact coming up in the future?
Social impact. I think that it's a very complex field, if you ask me. If you look at the bottom of the frontier, some of these concepts have been challenged recently, the whole DNI, headwinds and whatnot. But if you look at it in Canada purely, I think that the Canadian economy, the Canadian demographic has benefited from social impact, from diversity of entrepreneurship, of population. I mean, there are not a lot of countries in the world that has multiple languages as official languages. That's part of diversity. That's part of, the force of Canada. And that's only on the language front. We also have diversity of culture, of peoples, and whatnot. So, social impact to me, if you link to entrepreneurship, it is a force to grow our economy. If we are welcoming and we provide equitable chances to succeed in the entrepreneurship scene, it is going to counter some of the headwinds we have from tariffs, from other forces that are hitting our economy, be it like the aging population and whatnot. If we promote entrepreneurship at all levels, that is, I think, one of the future trends. The second thing is, as I just said, there are so many entrepreneurs that are part of the baby boomers, and they are about to retire. And if you look purely at economic stats, 10 years ago, you had 100,000 entrepreneurs more than today. However, the population 10 years ago was 10 million less. So we lost for a growing population 100,000 entrepreneurs. How do we counteract this trend? Because it is the backbone of our economy, small, medium enterprises. So by providing financial solution that is equitable, by recognizing that, our superstars are not only athletes, are not only actors, but I would say our entrepreneurs are our stars, and we should value them, we should promote them, and we should support them at all levels, at all backgrounds. And that is something that I think social impact should make it core to its ambition, and it will help the economy, creating jobs, creating GDP, creating resiliency of our market, etc. Final thing I will say is when we look at entrepreneurs, we should look only at the entrepreneur and its business and contribution to the economy purely on a business by business basis. Behind each entrepreneur, how many families are fed through the salaries and the revenues of the employees, of the entrepreneur? The ramification of supporting an entrepreneur, we often forget, is multifold, and it goes very, very deep into the Canadian economy. And so I would wish to see more in movies, let's say, entrepreneurs and celebrating them as actors and athletes.
Absolutely. I always say, like, with social impact, it's something that is just, I think it's overly emphasized and kind of, oh man, it takes away from the organic term of social impact. I mean, back in my parents' days, if we needed a cup of sugar, you knock on your family's door. Or in Africa, we have a term, and you're from Madagascar, so you're well, where like, it takes a village. And so we know that that is all forms of social impact. It's been going on for thousands of years. But I see that there are things that have been gone off course, so we have to kind of realign and get those natural ways of going about how to be your brother's keeper and your sister's keeper, in order to make this world a better place. And we have Gen Z and Alpha and whatever these new ones coming up. So they're asking the questions like, what bags are you leaving? Is it a bag of bricks or a bag of cash? Like, what are you leaving for us to have to carry on as we continue this thing called life? So, it all comes together nicely when you put positive impact into it, for sure.
100%.
That's awesome. All right. So this is great. So if I was to ask you, like, what does success look like to you, what would you say?
So I think that if you will find it maybe funny, or you might have heard it in the past, I don't know, but success would be that we don't need a community banking division at BDC. So, I would love to close shop one day and say we don't need that anymore. But chances are, and life being what it is, it's hard to have a purely fair society, purely based on meritocratic ideals. So I don't know if that will, happen one day, or maybe those topics might change from, this inequality to another. But yes, I don't want to be utopian, but success would be to have less of a need to have such program in the future, such as community banking that has to reestablish equal chances purely based on merit. So that's one thing. But more on a realistic like basis, if we reach the ambition to reach 100,000 entrepreneur over 10 years through, say, 80 partners, that are our public ambition for community banking. The second thing I would say is we spoke about a lot of the underserved group, be it ethnical backgrounds or culture and peoples, but there is also on a purely basis, if you look at Canada, there's no microfinancing platform and program like any other development bank in the world that have such a program to really support those entrepreneurs that needs their first inlay of cash, outlay of in receiving that money to set up. Why? Because the first $25,000 you receive is your most important one, but it's the most risky one for lenders. So the other success factor is how can we further promote alongside a futurepreneur that does it? But futurepreneur does it for youth up to 39 years old. So can we complement that program for other groups of clientele who are older, who wants to set up a new venture and whatnot? So that is something that is in the back of my mind a lot. The other thing I would say is if you scan Canada and you look at the different programs, it's not completely filled. I'll give you an example. And maybe it's my ignorance. I don't know about those programs, but I've looked quite a lot in the last 18 months I'm in the role. And while there is, woman financing program out in the West, in Atlantic, in Ontario, it's less covered. When I looked at some of the other groups that are doing like LGBTQ plus, or I look at language minority, what are the programs that are helping these entrepreneurs get access to financing? I will tell you one example. I went to Alberta, and in Alberta, you have a big population of French-speaking entrepreneurs. Well, it is a bit harder to get access to financing when you're, a French speaker in an English speaking province. So how, I'm just saying that success is to have the ability to cover Canada from coast to coast to coast and have like programs that help all the groups that are, say, underserved and have a harder time accessing to financing, in a nutshell.
Definitely, definitely hear you well, hear you well. Well, Hassam, this has been so informative, and we appreciate all the work that you put into making that positive impact for community and for entrepreneurs who are just trying to get going and, just to make a decent life for themselves and their family. We thank you so much for what you do. And my last question for you is just your closing thoughts and calls to actions at this time.
Yeah, so I will just encourage everybody to, do a bit of research, go on our website, look up community banking, get like informed. And if you want to have like additional chat about the topic, feel free. I'm on LinkedIn and whatnot. So happy to discuss inclusive financing, community-based or community-based financing, microfinancing. All these topics are very dear to my heart and I love to discuss and have some think tank discussion with people. And finally, let's continue to promote a meritocratic, economic environment across Canada. Resist trends that are coming and headwinds which are coming from south of the border and others and in the news. We have to value Canadian values. And I think that makes our strength, and we shouldn't back down based on pressures from other places. So because it is what constitutes really our strength here in Canada.
Absolutely. Well, we thank you once again, and we will close the way that we began by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So, Sam, once again, we thank you, and I'm sure we'll definitely be collaborating again in the near future. So, you have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much.
Okay, take care.